Welcome back, everybody. Before we start, I just want to give a huge thank you for all the support on the previous video. It's humbling. To add to that, after reading through the comments on that video, there were a lot of good game suggestions left in the comments, some of which may be in this video or in a future video, so stay tuned for that. So again, thank you so much. I just want to say thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Okay, let's get on to it. Here are 5 more controversial NES games. Golgo 13 Top Secret Episode, released for the NES in 1988, and stands as one of the most controversial games of its era, pushing the boundaries of what was deemed acceptable in video games at the time. Based on the popular Japanese manga series about a professional assassin, Duke Togo, the game brought mature themes that were rarely seen in the relatively family-friendly NES library. Players navigated through a complex plot involving espionage, assassination, and conspiracy, with gameplay elements including first-person shooting, side-scrolling action, and even sniping missions. The graphic content, including the depiction of blood and violence, was particularly bold for a console primarily marketed to children. Additionally, scenes suggesting sexual content, although not explicit, were enough to raise eyebrows and generate controversy among parents and media watchdogs, questioning the appropriateness of material for younger audiences. The controversy surrounding Golgo 13 wasn't limited to its mature themes. The game's narrative delved into politically sensitive topics, such as the Cold War, bioweapons, and international terrorism. These subjects were not only ambitious but also provocative, leading to debates about the role of video games in addressing real-world issues. The intricate storyline, combined with its adult-oriented content, challenged the norms of video game storytelling at the time, paving the way for more mature narratives in the industry. Despite the backlash, or perhaps because of it, Golgo 13 garnered a cult following and is remembered today as a pioneering title that dared to tackle sophisticated and controversial themes, influencing the evolution of video game content and censorship discussion in the years to come. Maniac Mansion, released for the NES in 1990, quickly became a subject of controversy due to its unconventional and mature content. Developed by Lucasfilm Games, the game introduced players to the bizarre and creepy world of the Edison family and their sinister mansion. Unlike most NES games, Maniac Mansion featured a point-and-click adventure format, which allowed players to interact with various objects and characters, leading to multiple story paths and endings. The game's dark humor, combined with themes of kidnapping, mad science, and even implied adult content, sparked concerns among parents and media critics. Notably, certain lines of dialogue and scenes, such as the ability to microwave a hamster, seen as inappropriate for young audiences the NES typically catered to, leading Nintendo to demand significant edits before allowing the game's release on their platform. The censorship imposed on Maniac Mansion added another layer to its controversial status. Nintendo's strict content policies led to the removal of various suggestive and politically offensive elements, including language and visual gags. This censorship was a point of contention as many fans and critics argued that it compromised the game's original artistic vision and humor. Despite these changes, or perhaps because of the curiosity they generated, Maniac Mansion gained a dedicated fan base and is now regarded as a cult classic. The controversy surrounding the game highlighted the ongoing debate about video game content and the balance between creative freedom and content regulation, setting a precedent for future discussions on censorship in the gaming industry. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Punch-Out? Hold on. Yep, that's what it says. Okay. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out released for the NES in 1987 and became a cultural phenomenon, but it also stirred controversy due to its portrayal of ethnic stereotypes and its association with the controversial figure Mike Tyson. The game featured a lineup of opponents from various countries, each depicted with exaggerated traits that bordered on caricature. Characters like Frenchman Glass Joe, the Japanese Piston Honda, and the Indian Great Tiger played into broad stereotypes that were criticized for being insensitive and reinforcing negative perceptions. While these portrayals were intended to be humorous and exaggerated, they nonetheless sparked discussions about representation and the potential impact of such stereotypes on young audiences. Additionally, the game's association with Mike Tyson added to its controversial reputation. At the time of the game's release, Tyson was the undisputed heavyweight champion and a global superstar. However, his personal life was marred by legal issues and allegations of violence, which cast a shadow over the game's image. The controversy peaked when Tyson was convicted of rape in 1992, leading Nintendo to sever ties with him and re-release the game as Punch-Out featuring Mr. Dream, replacing Tyson with a fictional character. This decision underscored the challenges companies face when associating their products with real-life personalities, especially those with tumultuous personal lives. Despite these controversies, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out remains a beloved classic, remembered for its challenging gameplay and iconic status in the NES library.
To raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt or action-packed Hogan's Alley and high-flying Kung Fu, each sold separately.
Before we get to the last two games on this list, let me know your thoughts so far in the comments below. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting Punch-Out to be on this list, but when I found it during my research, I definitely wanted to add it. And along with that, I really want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Friday the 13th released for the NES in 1989 and garnered significant controversy due to its attempt to translate the slasher film genre into video game format. Based on the popular horror movie franchise, the game placed players in the role of camp counselors tasked with protecting children from the infamous killer Jason Voorhees. The game's dark premise, involving the gruesome murder of characters, was a stark departure from the family-friendly image Nintendo often promoted. Critics and parents were particularly concerned about the game's violent content. While not graphically explicit due to the NES's limitations, still conveyed a sense of horror and dread that was unusual for the time. The atmosphere, combined with the eerie soundtrack and sudden appearances of Jason, contributed to a gaming experience that many deemed too intense for younger players. The gameplay mechanics and difficulty level also fueled controversy. Friday the 13th was notorious for its challenging and often frustrating gameplay, with critics citing unclear objectives and repetitive tasks. Players had to navigate the camp, search cabins, and engage in combat with Jason, who could appear unpredictably, leading to sudden and often unavoidable encounters. This high difficulty, combined with the dark theme, led some to question whether the game was appropriate for the NES's broad audience. Despite its controversial nature, Friday the 13th has maintained a cult following among gamers. It stands as a unique example of early attempts to bring horror into video games, reflecting the challenges and debates around content appropriateness and the portrayal of violence in gaming. Monster Party, released for the NES in 1989, stirred controversy due to its bizarre and often grotesque imagery, which stood out even among the quirky titles of the era. The game follows a young boy named Mark, who teams up with a gargoyle named Bert to battle an array of strange and monstrous enemies. What set Monster Party apart was its dark and surreal atmosphere, featuring a mix of horror and absurdity. The game included graphic depictions of blood and unsettling enemy designs, such as a giant disembodied head and melting faces. This macabre content was considered too intense for younger audiences, clashing with the generally lighthearted tone of most NES games. Parents and critics alike were taken aback by the stark and sometimes disturbing visual elements, leading to debates about the appropriateness of such imagery in children's entertainment. Adding to the controversy was the game's strange blend of humor and horror, which left many unsure of its intended audience. Monster Party incorporated a variety of pop culture references and parodies, some of which were more mature in nature. The game's tone fluctuated between goofy and genuinely creepy, creating a dissonant experience that confused and sometimes unsettled players. The initial Japanese version of the game was even more graphic and significantly altered for its North American release, but traces of its original content remain. Despite its controversial elements, Monster Party has developed a cult following with fans appreciating its unique approach and surreal charm. The game remains a notable example of how blending genres and pushing the boundaries of content can lead to both backlash and enduring fascination. As we've explored, the NES era was not just a time of pixelated graphics and chiptune music, but also a period of significant experimentation and boundary pushing in video game content. These games each brought their own flavor of controversy, challenging the norms of what video games could address and how they presented their narratives, sparking important conversations about censorship, representation, and the impact of mature content on younger players, discussions that are still relevant in today's gaming industry. Despite the controversies, or perhaps because of them, these games have left an indelible mark on the history of gaming, remembered for their bold choices and unique contributions. It's clear that the gaming landscape has always been a dynamic and evolving medium, capable of provoking thought and pushing cultural boundaries. The controversies surrounding these titles highlight the complexities and growing pains of an industry finding its voice. As gamers and creators continue to push the envelope, it's essential to remember the lessons from these early controversies. They remind us of the power of video games as a form of expression and the importance of balancing creative freedom with cultural sensitivity and responsibility. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. What are your thoughts on the games on this list? Have you played any of them? They're not as obscure as the games on the first list, but I'm sure some of you have played them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, please leave a like, and if you didn't, that other button seems to work pretty well too. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing for a plethora of gaming related content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.